Hello, everybody. Good evening. I'm so happy to be back. I took a little summer break. Tonight, we're going to talk about something serious, and it's again, often as it often is, about the kids in this country. Now, you may think that the epidemic of transing children is over, but it is nowhere near over. We are at, I believe, the beginning of the end, and the end is in sight. But there are still millions of children at risk, and we're going to get into that tonight. And you may think, this doesn't apply to me. My kids aren't at risk. My grandkids aren't at risk. But let me explain to you that they have classmates, they have friends who are at risk. And it's extremely important that all of us and our children are taught how to spot the signs of when a kid is being indoctrinated into the gender identity cult. So roughly 3 to 5% of kids in America identify as trans. The statistics are really hard to measure, but we do know that that is somewhere between 300 and 600% higher than it was before this became a social contagion. So tonight, I want to get into this with a very special guest who I'm excited to talk to. Her name is Pamela Garfield-Jaeger, and she's a licensed clinical social worker with over 25 years of experience. And I'll let her explain it, but she had to take a little bit of time off of work. And when she came back, she entered an industry that she almost didn't recognize because gender indoctrination of children had been put at the forefront. And she has since written 2 books about it. One of them is for adults like us, and it's called A Practical Response to Gender Distress, Tips and Tools for Families. The chapters in here are things like I was just talking about, how to spot the signs. She explains what's going on here. And then the other end of the spectrum, because we got to get the little kids early and teach them the truth and teach them right from wrong, right from the beginning, is this adorable little kids book called Froggy Girl. And you got to get this for your kids. All right, well, I'll get into it with Pamela. But basically, the girl thinks she's a frog until somebody just looks at her and says, you know what? You're not a frog. You're a lovely girl. Why don't you stick with that? Anyway, I don't want to waste any more time. Let's get Pamela in here. Hello. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. What a great introduction.
Oh, well, why, thank you. It was easy. It was easy to write. Like, this was exciting stuff. This is on topic for me. I want to protect children from this. Where do we begin?
Oh my gosh, where do we begin? Well, just beforehand, we were talking about California, the state that I have fled. I don't know if we want to talk about that. Some of the bills that are happening.
So you're an escapee. Well, let's talk. I'd like to start with the books while they're fresh in my mind, if we can, because I'll tell you about why I fled California too. So because I lived there for a while. How bad did it get in your profession that you felt that you needed to write a book to help parents? Oh, hello, Kitty.
My cat.
She's welcome. Or he. Sorry, didn't mean to misgender your cat. What drove you to think like, I need to help parents navigate this?
Yeah, so what you were explaining in the introduction, I had this little hiatus. I left in 2017, came back in 2021. This was in California. And in 2021, half the girls were identifying as non-binary. And my colleagues were completely affirming this, going along with it, encouraging it, demonizing parents that were questioning it. And I was just a per diem, so I didn't have much say. And I was new after being on disability for 4 years. I didn't know what to do, but I thought it was crazy. And I honestly was fairly quiet about it. I would ask a lot of questions, but I didn't go head on at that time. But quickly into that position, they mandated the COVID vaccine, and I was not open to doing that after all the health issues I had. So when I was fired from that job after being on disability for 4 years, I felt I had nothing left to lose. So I just became public and started talking about all of the madness that I had been seeing. I felt like I was obligated. I felt like I was called to doing it because I knew a lot of people were seeing the same things, but were afraid to say something. And for good reason. They would have lost their jobs, and I had nothing to lose. So I wanted to be the one. I felt like I had to be the one to speak up.
Well, thank you for jumping into this fight, especially. And at the time when you started speaking up, you were still living in California.
Oh yeah.
How was that? How was that received? I'm sorry to laugh, but it's very hard to be. I moved to Florida from Massachusetts. I was living in Boston, and I was, it was like a secret club of people who thought differently, just because I had a little bit more what I would consider, to be just old school values of boys and girls and things like that.
Yeah. What was it like? The truth is I was already very isolated because I had this physical disability. And then I also spoke out against the BLM riots, and I didn't post a black square, the crime. So a lot of my quote unquote friends sort of canceled me from that. So again, less to lose. It was easier. And I also didn't believe in the masking. In the beginning, I was okay with it. Wasn't onto the whole thing at the time, but after a while, the masking really got to me, especially when it comes to being in a therapy program or doing group therapy with people with severe mental health issues and wearing masks. I didn't agree with that. And so, yeah, I wasn't doing well in California.
Yeah. At that time of life for us, all of us as Americans, was like an avalanche of wake up calls. And you either woke up or you didn't. And, the whole thing with COVID, when they're wearing the masks and, I did my 2 weeks and I was like, all right, now the facts are coming in. Less than 1% of people will die. And of those are people who already have really bad health problems. Children are almost immune to this. Like, why do I have to wear a mask when I'm alone on the street or sitting on a park bench outside of, at the park near my house? And because Massachusetts was very similar to California, it was just all in nut jobness. I lost work because of it. I read in your book that you lost, you had to forego a job because you didn't want to take the jab. I also had the same experience, and I don't regret it. It's not easy, and you have to make adjustments in your life to cope with that financially, but I don't care. It was worth it. And I'm so glad to this day that I don't have it in me. And every time I have an ache or a pain, I don't wonder if it's from that.
Yeah, I'm so grateful I didn't take it. And it wasn't because of anything political. It was because I had chronic pain and I had a nerve injury and I had gone through this health odyssey where doctors didn't believe me. And it took a long time to get back to standing up, basically. So I just wasn't trusting anything that was new and didn't have much information on. So
that was my reason too. It wasn't political. I was just like, you know what? I wasn't anti. I was just wait and see.
Me too.
And then I saw, and
I wait and saw, and then I saw. That's exactly it. I thought I was going to get it actually. Now I would never, but at the time I thought, oh, I'll just get it in like 6 months. We'll see how it goes.
Has anybody done any sort of research if there's a connection between children's mental health and that vaccine, and what the statistics on how that would be an interesting thing?
If it has been, I'm not aware of it. I don't.
Yeah,
think so.
because this increase, it does coincide on a timeline. The increase in trans ideology does coincide on a timeline with that, but it also coincides more with just the barrage of indoctrination that the children received from their teachers. They now have in-school therapists. Can you tell me more about that? The people who now are, they're taking schools and they're turning them into social services centers, and they're putting therapists in school who can talk to kids without even parental permission in some cases. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I'm not even proud of this, but I did that work 10 years ago. We did include parents or get parental consent, but we didn't need to. And there were certain situations where we didn't always do that. We tried. That has changed. The culture has shifted. So now school counselors believe that most parents are transphobic, or at least in danger of being transphobic, and that's horrible. That's a crime. So they don't want to involve parents. They also believe that children can lead and they know themselves, something that I didn't ever think of before. So these school counselors are trained to be little activists, and they don't realize they're going against parental rights, but they are, because they think they know better. That is the culture of therapists in general, that they think they're more enlightened. They think they understand feelings and emotions better. And so if they think a parent's going to be not open to talking about feelings or accepting certain feelings, then they'll just exclude them.
Well, we're seeing that we've seen a lot of stories like that where children have been taken away from parents. Child Protective Services is called on parents to get children taken away if the parents don't believe that their child should be, mentally, medically, or surgically transitioned. And in places like California, we know that the LA Children's Hospital, for example, has recently stopped transing kids, but they're still not, it's still widespread, in the state. And there's still a lot going on, especially on the mental health spectrum, which is, really confusing children and not dealing with any of their underlying mental health issues.
No.
Boston Children's recently came out and said, we're not stopping. That's a big.
Have they? I didn't even know that.
I saw that. I saw a headline. I haven't dug into it. So
yeah, I don't know the ins and outs because they say they're stopping, but they're stopping new patients, but they're continuing with patients that have been taking it. That was some of the headlines. So there's a lot of details. Honestly, I haven't tracked all of it. I know it. There has been a clampdown simply because they've lost federal funding, but
right. And
otherwise, yeah.
Puerto Rico just banned gender affirming care for children and criminalized it. So Puerto Rico, I don't follow Puerto Rican politics, to be perfectly honest, typically.
Me neither.
But I do not ever recall Puerto Rico being such a strong leader on an important issue before. And I'm pretty excited about that. And I will be digging. I'm remiss for not digging into it before I got on this call.
I don't dig into that too. I did not know that.
Yes, it was just announced this week, and I would like to read that legislation and see, if it's something that we can start applying in states around the country. It is being banned, thankfully. As we know from the Skermeti case, that was one that the 25 or so states that banned it are allowed to uphold that ban. So
that was a really big win, the Skermeti thing.
Yeah, but how in my intro, one of the things that you talk about in your book is warning signs.
Yeah,
and I'd love for you to take a few minutes and explain what do you look for as a parent. You're looking at your kids and their friends, and you're wondering what you don't know what messages are coming into their lives from teachers, therapists, the internet. How do you protect them, and how do you look out for this?
So after talking to a lot of families and young adults who have been through this and have come out the other side, one of the biggest patterns is a strong time while they're on the internet and kind of shutting the world out, and that is usually when they get indoctrinated. And then it goes by the internet, and then it gets reinforced at the schools and coaching and these other areas. And that's why I think my theory is the lockdowns connected with this rise in trans identities because of the screen time kids had. It could have been, there's probably a lot of other factors, but I think that's one of the biggest ones. My cat keeps coming in and out. She will not sit still.
That's all right.
Come on, cat.
It was a fantastic opportunity for predators to get into kids' minds and get into their lives. Yeah.
So one of the big warning signs is if your kid really starts to withdraw and be on their phone more than usual. We know kids are on their phones too much already, and I know a lot of parents are working on setting limits on that. But if you notice that they've been on the internet more than usual and they're really immersed, they're probably learning something that you don't want them to be learning.
Yes.
And being exposed to porn and being exposed to influencers that don't have a good influence. But then you look at their behaviors, notice that they're changing their styles, their vocabulary. Maybe they're even a little critical of you, and you just say normal truths and you use he and she, and they start saying, well, no, they, them, or, a lot of parents dismiss this. They think, oh, this is just a phase. It's not a big deal. Yes. But it is a big deal. If they start to reject your family values, like your religion and things like that, suddenly, you should notice that and not dismiss it, not just think it's just a phase.
Right. So when you and I were growing up, it was just a phase. and it was normal for parents to just think it was a phase, but there was not this kind of evil circling around us trying to capture us way back then. So parents need to get out of that mindset of this could just be, a little something that's going on. I mean, my son is 21. But if he were, 13 or 14 now, and he started saying they, them, I would be sitting him down. I would sit him down and be talking to him every single night. There is no such thing as they, them, but not every parent is like that. Have you heard of Wobot? Wobot is an AI chatbot therapist. I
have heard of it. They're actually, the Epoch Times wrote an article about that, and they interviewed me about it when it was a little while ago, like over a year ago, when it was really new, or they're maybe not even out yet. Just the prospect of AI therapy. It's terrible.
It is out now. Yeah. And I read about it in either the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times. I don't remember. And just like last month, they did an article on it. And these children are, every time they have even a single negative feeling, they're just picking up their phone and they're talking to the AI chatbot who's telling them it's going to be okay. Everything's okay. And we're not creating any sort of resilience. And this just seems really dangerous. And I don't know if this Wobot therapist is also talking about, gender dysphoria with these kids.
And telling them to go to maybe a residential program in California that's going to allow them to consent to their own treatment, or a therapist that's going to go groom them elsewhere, right? Go find help, go find a trusted adult. Well, who are these, trusted adults sounds good, but in practice, it's not always someone we should trust. So,
well, please, if they tell you could trust teachers, you trust librarians, you trust the adults at your school, you absolutely can't trust any of them. They're all trying to not just gender indoctrinate kids, but they're pushing sexually explicit content and ideas on them. They're pushing abortion and STDs and sex toys. And I mean, the books that I have that have been pulled out of middle and high schools, or pulled off the shelves, I should say, at middle and high schools, are absolutely atrocious. But tell me about that weird thing that you just said about kids choosing on their own to go live in a group home. How was that?
Oh, yeah. So, well, in California, I testified against this bill that is now in practice. It's AB 665. And what it does is it allows for 12 and up children to consent to their own residential treatment. So they could go to talk to their school counselor and tell them that they got in a fight with their mom or dad, or just be a normal teen that has conflict at home, because that's what happens. And then the groomery counselor can say, oh, go to this group home. And then they can transition the kid there, or do anything, indoctrinate them there, even put them on meds, because then they've been checked in they don't need parental consent. That's real. I actually wish I knew what has been the fallout of that. I'm sure there's been a lot, but I haven't heard specifically, but we know that there's got to be, because they made it out to be, because I was at the assembly, they made it to be like it increases access, it helps access, particularly for low-income families. And they would say it was, what parents who are working and busy, they can't always be there for the kid to drive them there or do something. So now the parents don't need to do anything. The kids can just go and, pretty much be kidnapped without them.
Well, the idea is for the state to completely take over your children and take over their minds, their health care, their mental health care, how they think, what they think, completely remove children from the fabric of their family and separate them. A lot of the things that we're seeing, like in California, there's a law that's that's going through the state house right now to have instead of just a regular suicide hotline printed on the back of school IDs. They also want to put the Trevor Project's suicide hotline.
The Groomer Project.
The Groomer Project, yes.
I think I just put that in my stories today. The Trevor Project is the Groomer Project. That's in my book too. I talk about the Trevor Project and the chat rooms that they have, age 12 to 24, and all these creepy names, these littles, and people who identify as whatever age they want. Really, furries. Lots
Yeah,
of
there are
creepy stuff.
they have an our dad's suck club, like
Yeah,
another one, like we don't like our moms, like very anti-family.
anti-family.
Yes, and
Hmm.
anti-reality. And
And
again, mixing adults with children to talk about sex and sexuality and how you feel about your genitals is some of the most evil stuff I have ever heard. I mean, in our time, right?
yeah,
That would have been how somebody got thrown in the harbor by me. I don't know. I
it's
mean, just
awful. And
yeah,
I worked with foster kids in the past, and they particularly target kids who do have rough home lives, who have sexual abuse in their history, or some kind of trauma for real.
yeah.
And these are the kids that gravitate towards this. So, and it doesn't make them better. They're putting them in an environment. These are kids who are already vulnerable for all those reasons, and then they're putting them in this environment to just get exploited once again, and then calling it help.
So I see or hear a lot with detransitioners again and again and again. One of the common denominators is that they were sexually abused when they were young,
Mm-hmm.
and I imagine you see this too.
Yes.
Um, how does that? Now, I know sexual abuse is far too common. We know that. How does that work, like psychologically, that a child, I mean, what makes them want to transition because of that?
Yeah. I mean, think about it. When you have been sexually assaulted, oftentimes you struggle with your sexuality at that point, and perhaps you have a challenging relationship with your body, and most times you want to dissociate from your body, and you sometimes the brain just does dissociate depending on how severe the trauma is. And so being trans is really a way of dissociating from your body. It's also a form of self-harm, and people who have sexual trauma in their
Mm,
past tend to self-harm. You look at a lot of even the influencers, and there's some famous pictures out there of young people who've had the double mastectomy. You'll see the self-harming scars all over their bodies too. Most likely those are people who have sexual abuse in their past. Prisha Mosley, she's pretty open about it, and she has that history. She posted this one picture as a drawing of, it was a pencil drawing where there's a girl who's kind of missing her body parts, and she said how she wanted the doctors to just take like her breasts and her genitals away because she felt like they caused so much pain for her because she had that trauma in her history. So it would very much make sense that you would want to get rid of these body parts. Also, you think about it, the vulnerability that you feel, especially women, but honestly, both men and women. And so they want to feel stronger. They feel like this being a trans is kind of like a shield. So girls might want to either just run away from being women altogether, or believe that they're a man to make them feel stronger. Although many detransitioners I've talked to said even once they were trans, they still got sexually assaulted again. Like they were still just as vulnerable because they were still women all along. And then men too, they're afraid of their genitals, they're afraid of their sex drive because of their sexual assault histories. So it lines up. I mean, it makes a lot of
I,
sense.
I don't know. You know what? I don't know. I mean, we knew people in college and who have been, and I know adult women who were sexually abused as children. And before any of this, I never heard anybody. I mean, I saw a lot of pain, a lot of drinking the
Mhm.
pain away, alcohol, drug abuse to try to, or anger. But I never heard anybody say, if I could only cut these parts off, I would feel better. These are ideas that are obviously
They,
being
they're
planted.
coming out. Yeah, they're coming from outside.
I mean, nobody would think of that. Nobody would
Hmm.
ever think of that.
I mean, in the past, women would like gain weight or cut their hair to be unattractive because they didn't want that male gaze because they were scared of it or uncomfortable after having such a negative experience. So that's a lot. That was common. So I think this is the new way of doing that, to take away your femininity that you're afraid of, that you don't feel comfortable with.
Yes. Yeah, right. And they're right. And we don't need this way. This
Mhm.
is completely unnecessary. We can just, because again, where I started with the detransitioners, they're coming out of it. They're healing from their pasts. You can heal from sexual abuse and sexual assault. And you can, and then they're now dealing with mutilated bodies, receding hairlines, cancers in many cases.
Yeah.
I mean, we could go on about the nasty side effects of the medicalization and surgeries that they've put on these kids. I mean, imagine being a young girl, being 14, 15, and having a double mastectomy, and then coming out of the trance that these evil people convinced you to be in. It's infuriating. We're making a lot of headway right now, but we're not moving fast enough, because the more headway we make as a nation in stopping this, the harder the other side is fighting to grab onto the kids.
They are.
I am a homeschool advocate. I did not homeschool my kid. Looking back, if I could do it again, knowing what I know now, I would have. But thankfully, things weren't this bad. I know a lot of people can't afford to homeschool, though. So
it's not easy for everybody to do that.
Yeah.
Not everyone has that luxury, I guess.
It is a luxury. Yeah. I mean, again, there are the group of people in the middle who could choose differently if they, and have the luxury if they wanted to. And I think at the end of the day, what will solve this is putting children as truly as our priority over politics, over sexuality, over indoctrination. Because if we do that at home and in school, we can stop. We can, pull this together and pull ourselves together as a country. Can we lighten up before we go and talk about Froggy Girl?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
We both have a copy.
We both have our copy of Froggy Girl. I'm loving this. This book is, first of all, it is so beautifully illustrated. I mean, I'm just opening up to a random page.
Did you know that the illustrator is a detransitioner? Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I like that part of the story. That's wild.
His name is Nicholas Blooms.
Well, kudos to Nicholas.
Very artistic. And, it's not a coincidence. A lot of these kids who fall into this tend to be more artistic, the more artistic types. So a lot of the detransitioners are quite artistic. In fact, in my book, the other one, there's art by detransitioners in there, because several of them are just very talented artists. And it's not a coincidence.
Wow. Yeah, that they're going after these touchy-feely, artsy kids.
The creative types.
The creative types. So how did this come to be?
Well, I did the other book, and every week I would stalk it on Amazon and I'd watch it rank in the teen LGBTQ section of Amazon. So it was sitting next to these really nasty books. That genderqueer book, and several of the trans influencers. It's a woman that has like this manta ray type. I don't remember her name, but several of these trans books, a lot of books about autism and trans we know that they're targeting autistic kids, but these books make it to be like, it's, you're autistic, so, and be trans. Like, they affirm the whole thing and don't acknowledge the connection,
right, of
the fact that they have struggled with the social skills and all the different aspects of being autistic. So they have those books there. And so I was just watching these terrible books, and I was like, I want to put one that's positive out there. So I decided to write this one. I woke up in the middle of the night, like at 3 a.m, really, and these little rhymes were ringing through my brain, and it just came to me, the froggy thing. I don't know. And I remember like waking up at 3, 4 a.m. and writing it down on a little pad of paper, and then, honing it down, the little rhymes to get it right. And then at first I was going to just get an artist on Fiverr, which is that, you just get like contractors, and just have it just be a little project. And then the artist I originally hired completely flaked on me, and I was left with nothing. And then I went to this conference, the American Academy of Pediatrics conference, with some detransitioners and some other advocates and mothers that have been fighting this issue. And one of them is Nicholas, who did this. And so we teamed up to do this book together. I basically hired him to do the art for this. And that's how it came to be.
Well, I absolutely love it. I mean, for those of you listening, this is a great book for, like, it kind of made me feel like a child reading it, which was really fun, for a book to be able to do that, because I was an avid reader as a little girl. And this is a great tool.
It's so happy.
It's so happy and positive, and it's a great tool for teaching kids about the difference between imagination and reality.
That's it.
Right. And it's wonderful to pretend to be a frog, but it's not wonderful to believe you actually are a frog.
Yeah, it's good to pretend. That's what it's like. They're exploiting kids' imagination. It seems so obvious to us on our perspective of this, but strangely, it's not that obvious to other people that you can't be something that you're not. And for some reason, when it comes to the gender thing, they don't believe that you're not it, but that a child can declare this, and that's what it is. And they've been conditioned to be scared to question it. I think even people who would question it have been beaten to not, because of the culture. They're just afraid because they'll be labeled some bigot, transphobic person. So this book gives, I think, both the adults and the children permission to recognize it's fun to pretend, and we can't be something we're not. And it does it with rhymes and colorful pictures and a sweet message.
Yes.
It was inspired by Free to Be You and Me. Do you remember that?
No.
It was kind of a liberal, it was like a 70s album where they had a lot of the messages. You can be different, but you are still a boy, you are still a girl. They have a skit called William Wants a Doll, and it's a song, and this boy, he likes boy things, whatever you want to call it, boy things in quotes. He likes football and soccer and sports, but he liked to play with dolls too. And his dad was upset that he liked to play with dolls, and his friends were making fun of him. And there's, in the song, they go, a doll, William wants a doll. And they're like all mean to him. And then the lesson of the little skit is his grandma says, this is wonderful that he likes dolls. This means he's going to be a great father one day. And that's the moral of the story. So it's okay to like dolls. We don't have to hone in on it. We don't have to push him to be one thing or the other. He's a boy.
Yep. Let a tomboy be a tomboy.
Exactly.
Let a girl wants to. I've never climbed a tree in my entire life. I never had the urge. It's too late now. That ship has sailed. I'm never climbing a tree. I don't. But if I did want to climb a tree, that wouldn't have made me a boy.
No.
And to take these stereotypes and reinforce them now, after all the work that we did to just let people exist and do things that they enjoy, is criminal.
Totally.
And it's abuse. This isn't just physically abusive to children, to trans them. The psychological abuse involved in this is like nothing we have ever seen. And I'm glad that we're at the beginning of the end, but the work continues. And I want to just give this one more little mention. Froggy Girl, I would recommend grabbing it to plant the seeds of reality in your kids early, because they're going out into the world at some point, and they're still going to be fighting this lunacy. It's still going to be coming at them. Eventually, they'll be on the internet. They'll be in school. They'll be on a sports team, and there's going to be people telling them that, you're on the softball team. You're probably not a girl. We need to get ahead of it, unfortunately.
And their friends. Part of it is too, even if they don't think they're trans, dealing with their friends becoming trans. What did they do then? And feeling lost in that. So if they feel confident in reality, that will help them, because this is not only creating anxiety for kids who believe they're trans. This is creating anxiety for all children, because think about it. You have a best friend, and all of a sudden this best friend can just decide they're a boy or a girl or something in between. That's very anxiety provoking. But if you are grounded in reality, you won't lose footing, right? That these poor children, they don't have a frame of reference like we do, because we're adults. And so that's part of also why I wrote this, is because I was seeing that in the program and just in general, that kids are one of the reasons they're so anxious is because everything is shifting constantly around them. Even those that aren't trans are still impacted by this. So that's my rationale.
Right. You know what? Really, the kids who aren't trans watching this go on around them has got to be very confusing. Having a teacher tell them if they use the wrong pronoun that they're a bad person, and then coming home to maybe a parent like me who says, "Oh yeah, Jimmy, yeah, he's still Jimmy. You know, he's not Janice. Like, don't let you call him hate. Because that would be me. We don't lie in this family. We can be polite, but we're not lying." So just all that conflicting messaging going on for kids who aren't trans has really got to be a lot. Man, these kids,
they don't know how to relate anymore. Think about this. They're learning how to have social skills. They're learning how to relate to one another. And if these identities are shifting by the minute, how are they supposed to make real connections? It's impossible.
This is extreme. But I think the best thing that could happen is for like the grid to go down for a month. And I know there'd be a lot of mayhem, certain of that, but there would be a lot of good that came out of it.
I would like that.
Yeah. I mean, we would struggle. We've never lived in Little House on the Prairie, but we would adapt faster than the young people would. But
I would get lost though without my GPS.
You wouldn't have to go anywhere.
True. I don't know how to drive it. Like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get lost.
No, we would work with our neighbors. Do you know how to get to such and such? Yeah, I do. Okay.
That's true. There. Remember we used to give each other directions and write them down and draw little maps for each other? Yes. Yeah. What a different world.
We were more connected because we relied on each other.
That's true.
Yeah. Yeah. Now when somebody starts to give me directions verbally, I'm like, it's like,
I'll just put the GPS. I'll just put it in my Google.
Like, please stop talking. I'm not listening to what you're saying. But we would start listening to people again.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
So yeah, I have a dream. It's a weird dream, but it would be really nice to see young people come out of the phone coma and really start to understand what it means to be a human being that interacts with other human beings.
And to have downtime. When you have downtime, like if you're waiting in line, don't go look at your phone. Think about it. If you have downtime, what do you do with yourself? I mean, I do this myself. I go look at my phone, and sometimes I make a concerted effort not to, but it takes an effort not to. And then, I'll try to leave it at home when I can. Sometimes they don't let you do that, but I would.
I do too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I walk the morning walk with the dog. There is no phone. I'm checking out the clouds, doing whatever I feel like doing, praying. It's a wonderful time because I like you said, it's an effort to retrain your mind to be a normal human being again. Because we got caught up in this very slowly. We were like the frog in the boiling pot of water, they turned the heat on slow, and then before you know it, the frog was boiling. That's us. That's you and me.
Froggy Girl.
Yeah, I know. That's why I use the frog. But that's us because we started with the internet. We were like, oh, this is neat. Like,
it was cool. Yeah. Oh my God, an email. Someone can actually. I mean, I'm that old. I remember getting my first email in college.
I remember being in an AOL chat room and thinking it was like the height of technology.
I was like, oh my God, this is like war games. We can chat. It's so cool.
Yeah, but and now look at us now. So. Yeah, we have to break free from it. And I hope that people will break their children free from it. And I think that'll be a big part in saving them from all of this sick indoctrination. I could talk to you for like another 2-3 days. Because I have so many books behind me that are horrible that I would, I know we could have a great conversation about. So maybe we can do this again sometime.
I love watching your videos where you read the ones and you make fun of them. I was just at a bookstore for a little book fair, but the bookstore itself was very woke. And inside it had a couple of books that I was familiar with because of your reels. The one was the A is for Activists one.
Oh,
They had that in there. And I remember that book.
Thank you. I'm so glad that I can, make any sort of impact, or somebody like
Mm-hmm.
sees a book and knows exactly what's going on in there. Because
Yep.
yeah, any bookstore, friend of mine, after that A is for Activist video I did, which if you haven't seen it, it's a board book for
Yeah.
babies and teaching them about activism
Using the ABCs.
using the ABCs. Yeah. So wild. And like, smashing capitalism and all those things, like very anti-American, anti-normal, anti-everything.
Yep.
And so she says to me, she goes, oh, I was just shopping, and this is somebody from like my Bible study, right? So she's not in woke worlds at all. She was on Target.com, I believe, and she was just looking for baby books for a gift for somebody, and that popped up, and she goes, I couldn't believe it. She goes,
It's everywhere.
yeah. So they're all selling it, they're pushing it. She goes, I certainly didn't. My search history certainly has no indication that I would be interested in something like that. And they're just pushing that up on me. So
I'm trying to get Froggy Girl on the shelves, and meanwhile, that one's what's taking the space.
For now.
Yeah, it's going to change.
It's all going to change. Let's get Froggy Girl on.
And that is my goal. That's also why I wrote this, to shift the culture. One children's book at a time. You see how many books were infiltrated from the left. Well, we got to infiltrate from, with our values on the bookshelves too. That's the reason I wrote this.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that. I absolutely love it. And I'm going to tell everybody about it. So tell everyone where they can get a copy of Froggy Girl.
So Froggy Girl has its own website. It's froggygirlbook.com. And it's on all the major online book retailers. So you can choose. It's on Amazon. The publisher is BookLogix, ends with an X. And so, but all those links are on there. So you can go to froggygirlbook.com and find where you want to purchase it. And even internationally, my other book is only on Amazon because it's self-published, and people in Australia are not able to buy it apparently. But you can buy Froggy Girl from Australia because there's an Australia distributor. So yeah, because I guess you can't ship it all the way to Australia. That's like too expensive for Amazon. But my other book, A Practical Response to Gender Distress, is on Amazon. So you just put it in the search bar there or put in my name. I have a website, thetruthfultherapist.org, and there are actually some online courses on there. The links to my books are on there. I need to update some of my more recent media appearances and such. Some of my older ones are on there. But that's also how you can get a hold of me. My social media, I'm Truth Therapist on Twitter, X, and the.truthful therapist on Instagram. And I have a Substack, which is Pam the Truthful Therapist.
All right, guys. Listen, if you can't find Pamela, then I don't know what to tell you. That she gave you a million ways. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I could not be happier to know you now. And
I'm so glad we connected.
And I don't want to brag, but I have an autographed copy. So
yeah, you're special. You deserve that. All the good work you do.
No, I'm grateful for it. Thank you. And it was great. And keep up the good work.
Same.
I'm on your team. All right. Bye, Pamela. All right, guys, that was a lot of fun, that conversation. Again, check out these books, Froggy Girl, The Response to Gender Distress. I know that generally speaking, we're all sick of talking about this, but we cannot get sick of protecting our children. We have to stick with it. So thanks for watching tonight. God bless you, and God bless America.